Welcome. We are delighted to have everyone. As I was just saying, we have far more folks than we were hoping or expecting, which is why we are in this webinar format, which means that not everyone is on video. Just a few folks who have are going to be giving comments are on video for now, and everyone else is welcome to drop comments in the chat to either share with just the panelists or with the group at large. And if you would like to come on video later, we can promote you and bring you on screen, but this is just a way to manage the fact that we have a couple hundred people registered. So we just wanted it to not be overwhelming for everyone. But everyone you're seeing in the gallery view on screen now are folks who are going to be giving comments specifically when we move into a sort of breakout session further along this morning. So just to give a quick overview of the plan, and again, thank you so much everyone for joining. We're going to start off with opening remarks from Celine DiCarlo, who's going to speak about the New York Fashion Workforce Development Coalition and introduce an initiative that's been ongoing for a couple years now. And then Ngozi Okaro from Custom Collaborative will speak to introduce Custom Collaborative's work to the group. And then we'll have Celine Simon from Slow Factory introducing the One by One initiative. And then I will speak a little bit about the Custom Collaborative and Mara Hoffman collaboration for that One by One Slow Factory initiative. And then we'll move into the breakout where you'll hear from all the folks who are in gallery view right now. And Mara will close us off with some final thoughts before we wrap up. And this event is really meant to be a kickoff for a broader conversations across the group. We have folks joining today who are from retailers, from fashion brands, from factories here in New York City, individuals, institutions, talent workers in the fashion space. So we're hoping this will really be a place to get everyone on the same page and joining together in a conversation about New York's fashion future. So all of us panelists should be on mute, and a reminder that when we get to the breakout session, do keep your time to just about 3 to 5 minutes so that we can keep everything rolling along. But I'm now going to hand it over to Celine to give opening remarks on the coalition.
Thanks, Tessa. Thank you everyone for joining this morning. I know a few of you are asking about videos, so I just wanted to reiterate for those who joined a little bit later that because of the RSVP count, we had to disable the video function. But please definitely use the chat to ask any questions or give any remarks. We want this to be as collaborative as possible. And depending on how this goes, we might have a round 2, so stay tuned for that. So a little bit of history on what's now been called the New York Fashion Workforce Development Coalition, and anyone who can say that 3 times without stuttering wins. This was a group of individuals, organizations, both from the public and private sector, who came together under the same mission of creating an understanding that there were job opportunities within this paradigm of what a lot of people call sustainable fashion. And we are not, you know, especially as Mara Hoffman, we are not pioneers in this by any means, but what we did do was start bringing in other individuals who had been working within this sphere for a very long time. For some of those have been working it for decades, and really looking at what sustainable fashion meant with regards to creating opportunities, especially for women, marginalized women who needed it most. So for example, the idea of looking at renewing garments and creating take-back programs, and what that meant in terms of providing opportunities to train women who needed to work within their communities to help with that, and in turn provide income, which then accelerated this mission of sustainable fashion. And through that, we started networking and hearing about phenomenal organizations who had been doing this for a while, one such being Custom Collaborative, which Ngozi founded and will speak to us further, who had created these coalitions that did exactly that, who provided training, provided education, and then who provided jobs. And through that, we started learning a lot more about other individuals in this field who had been focused on this. So this coalition is very informal. It's very much open to whoever is interested in joining this. And we invite everyone to do just that, because our ethos starts with the idea of the power of the collective and how we are truly able to advance each other and ourselves by working collaboratively to create this transformation that this idea of sustainable fashion speaks to. So with that, I will make that very quick, but I just wanted to thank everyone again. I want to thank all the panelists who are here. Everyone has been so instrumental and so focused on this idea of being stronger together and not being proprietary, which has been phenomenal. So thank you again, and I'm really looking forward to hearing everyone's thoughts and how we can continue to build on this momentum, especially under the conditions under which we are now in promoting this economic advancement for the New York City garment renewal. Thank you so much. And over to Ngozi.
Great, thank you, Celine. So Ngozi, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen with a few slides about Custom Collaborative while you're speaking. I'll just sort of move through them as you go. So just a moment while I get those up.
Thanks, great, Tessa. Thank you so much, Celine DiCarlo. I also want to shout out Celine Seyman for her vision and leading Slow Factory that's allowed us to do this project with Mara Hoffman, and of course the rest of the Mara team, and all of my colleagues at Custom Collaborative, and my cis friends who I see in the audience, SIS. So a little bit about me. Yes, I lead Custom Collaborative, and we are a nonprofit social enterprise that supports women from low income and immigrant communities be part of the fashion industry. We've been doing this work since 2016, and you'll meet a couple of the women who've been through our programs today. And we have 3 different programs. The first thing that we do that we probably are the most known for is a training institute. We have a 14-week, 30-hour-per-week program where women learn to design, sew, and sell sustainable fashion. So basically they learn to make patterns, they learn sewing, they learn about sustainability, meaning both environmental sustainability and fair wages, human rights. There's a business part of the program. They learn entrepreneurship, as well as some personal finance and other areas. So many of the things that we do include field trips. We've gone on field trips to Mara, and we've been lucky to talk with Celine and Dana and Mara, field trips in the garment industry to museums. So really we want to give people the opportunity to learn more and participate in an industry that in many ways has been exclusive of them. The second part of our work is a business incubator. And so you'll see a picture here of Naya, who is a graduate from our first cohort, with Ben, who was then, I think, leading production, but also had been our first lead instructor, with Katrin from Lafayette 148, making Katrin's wedding gown. And I think that that was a first sample. And so basically that really illustrates what we do in the business incubator when people come to us with work, whether it's like sample making, pattern making, consulting about sustainability. We incorporate the women who are graduates of our training program so they can earn money and learn in the process. I should add also that our training program is a paid program. So we pay women a stipend and a MetroCard to participate with us. The third part of our work is cooperative development. So you'll see pictured here 6 of the 7 women who are founding members of the Fashion That Works Production Cooperative. As many of you know, within the fashion industry, manufacturing is done by women who look like this, right? Black, brown, immigrant women, and they generally are not in control of the factories. They're not in management. They work mainly as operators. And so what we're doing is giving women the opportunity to both own and operate their own businesses. Fashion That Works is our first cooperative that we launched. They got their incorporation just a few weeks ago, although they've been working together for almost a year. We're super proud of them, excited about what they're doing, and thinking about, okay, so after this one launches and they're finished being incubated by us, what is our next cooperative? And it could be something that we start ourselves or an existing business that we take over. But we're really excited to give these women who, for the most part, have not had their own businesses, at least not in the US, to be business owners and decision makers. And I think that's a great segue into, equity and inclusion, which is at the core of our work. Custom Collaborative works with women from more than 20 different countries, people who have many first languages other than English, and who have had different experiences, but have not been included for one reason or the other, whether it's class or geography, or racism, sexism, so many other things. And we believe at Custom Collaborative that in order to have a truly dynamic industry and world, we need to include all of the folks and as decision makers, as well as being the people who are on the ground executing the work. So we're really excited to be with all of you, to share our learnings, to learn from you, and really transform the fashion industry into one that's more inclusive and sustainable for all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ngozi. Now I'm going to pass over to Celine Simon to speak about the One by One initiative, which is another longstanding collaboration and reinforcing the Custom Collaborative Mara Hoffman partnership. So Celine, take it away.
Thank you so much. First, I want to thank Ngozi and the Custom Collaborative team for inviting me to speak here today. And thank you, Mara Hoffman and Mara Hoffman's team for the trust since day one in our fun, crazy initiatives. And so the One by One is the first science incubator in fashion. And contrary to most fellowship programs, the goal of the One by One was to pair people together, pair people across industries. So in the case of the Mara Hoffman and Custom Collaborative team, we wanted to work with a Custom Collaborative and Mara Hoffman and pairing them in creating something unique, something that was maybe in the works or they were already exploring, but could we push it further? Could we support it? And the incubator is around science and design. And in the case of Custom Collaborative, it's about social sciences, right? It's about observing the work that they are doing and elevating it to looking at it from a social lens, an important piece in the puzzle of when we are discussing equity and sustainability in fashion and how do we move that forward. And the program One by One allows for designers and scientists, designers and innovators to come together and to push further their ideas, to work on prototypes, and with the support of an advisory board, get the kind of insights that they would need in order for them to, from the moment of a prototype, start small, but eventually, hopefully grow to a bigger scale, their operations, their initiatives, whether it's a new material or a new system. In the case of Mara Hoffman, it's a new system, it's a framework, and being able through the support of the One by One program to effectively, bring to the public, bring to the industry the kind of findings, the kind of solutions, the kind of case studies that allowed for the SPARE to execute their mission. And by doing so, it influences, it inspires the rest of the industry in following the blueprint that that the pair, Custom Collaborative and Mara Hoffman, were able to achieve in such a short time under a world epidemic, under a global revolution, and under so many circumstances. So I want to thank you and congratulate you. And this program is supported and by Swarovski and the United Nations. It's in partnership with Swarovski and is supported by the United Nations Office for Partnership. So we also have the support of giants like the Swarovski team to support this program, as well as the United Nations to provide guidance around the Sustainable Development Goals and to keep inspiring us in moving forward and reaching the Sustainable Development Goals in time, as we just started to kick off the decade of action in 2020. And what a year has it been to kick off such a mandate, such a global mandate. So that's for the one by one. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Celine. This has been, for the Custom Collaborative team, just a really incredible gift to the organization to get to formalize and practice a lot of this work that has been ongoing in many forms. So I'm going to provide a little preview of the work. So I'm going to share my screen again. But before I do, I want to introduce my co-collaborator from the Custom Collaborative side, Margot, if you could just wave. Margot is our incredible workforce development and strategic all things jobs and industry. So I'll be sharing, but she's the brains behind the work. So one moment while I get the screen up. Okay, so this project, as Celine, well, both Celines have mentioned, has been ongoing since the beginning of the year, but the relationship between Custom Collaborative and Mara Hoffman has been ongoing for much longer than that. So the project statement you can read here, really the goal is in alignment and extension of what Custom Collaborative does, what Mara Hoffman is, mission founded on, this goal of really supporting more diverse ownership, a more open and more inclusive industry, and creating solutions that can be shared in that open source model, as we've spoken about. So this was a project that kicked off with the study hall event in January, when this fellowship was announced and shared, and then since then the teams have been collaborating around this pilot apprenticeship model, which will actually be implemented and take place. We have all of the applications in from Custom Collaborative graduates, and we'll be doing sort of final selections to pick 3 apprentices who will be able to take advantage of this opportunity. And the apprenticeship is a really critical piece of the, again, extension of this work, because what happens in the Training Institute is this foundation, and then what happens in Custom Collaborative's Incubator, as Ngozi spoke about, is where there's really room to extend the work, advanced training, advanced support, but that support really, only works with industry partnership. So this apprenticeship is our case study of how we could really formalize and continue that work. So this particular pilot will take place with a Mara Hoffman team member who you'll meet later on, Deandra, and we hope to also extend a broader mentorship opportunity with other fashion industry professionals like all of yourselves who are on this call, to really create this community support for this project and this program. And the primary outcomes of the project are this knowledge transfer, the fact that we know there's incredible skill and generational knowledge and expertise that's held within this community, but how do we move that forward? How do we create a more expansive and robust and resilient New York fashion industry? That's the big piece that we're trying to sort out. And in addition, Custom Collaborative does a lot of work with our employee partners around workforce literacy, anti-racist workplace training. So these are all pieces that we've been working on throughout. This is sort of an overview schematic of the teaching model as we've been conceptualizing it. So on the far left is the industry instructor, which in this case will be Deandra. And the goal, again, is that knowledge transfer to paid apprentices, the idea that none of this labor is done for free, none of this labor is happening without fair and equitable pay. And then when the apprentices have learned this knowledge, they also benefit from co-learning amongst each other, a sort of micro cohort, continuing on the ideas that we've established in the Training Institute, where the students learn between each other as well as from the instructor. And then that knowledge can also be shared back into Custom Collaborative's business incubator is a really critical piece of this idea of knowledge transfer and knowledge sharing. And then on the far right, you can see the outcomes that we look for our graduates, and what we see from our graduates already, which is that they enter the field either in a freelance or contractor role, which is often informed if they have other commitments, like most of our graduates are primary caregivers, so a lot of them aren't looking for full-time work. They're looking for more contract roles. But we also have graduates who have gone on to full-time employment in the industry, and that's the career path that they're interested in. And then you'll hear more from our cooperative lead, Grace, later on about the Custom Collaborative's worker cooperative that Ngozi introduced. But this is really a third pathway towards ownership and employment that we champion. So here's Deandra, who again, you'll hear from in a bit, but this is sort of our case study and our example of what we're aiming to accomplish for the 1x1 fellowship. So Deandra will be doing a 6-week technical design apprenticeship with 3 selected apprentices who are graduates of Custom Collaborative's Training Institute. And these are the learning outcomes that they'll work through together. And then this is just sort of a breakdown of how we've started to map out that those 6 weeks, really working on core skills that are, industry level, but are building on what they've learned in the Training Institute. That idea of taking the training and the classroom learning and really applying it into an industry setting and getting hands-on projects and the benefit of expertise from Deandra, but also from broader industry support. And then just sort of to wrap up this preview, and again, we'll be sharing a lot more, I believe in September, with the unveiling of all 3 projects from 1x1. But really there's, on the left-hand side, they're kind of the phases that we're going through with the pre-assessment and the foundations of the program, skills assessment sort of throughout to track training and learnings, and assessments at the end, both in terms of technical skills and more soft skills and industry knowledge. And then in this purple box here, this is just a little bit of an overview of what Custom Collaborative provides in terms of support for our employee partners. So ways that we can help make sure that there's successful outcomes for everyone involved, and really provide a lot of the expertise and teaching and learning strategies that our team holds within ourselves. So that is the very quick preview. As I said, you'll be getting a lot more detail and photos and video and wonderful things in September. But I'm so happy to have been able to share kind of a teaser of the team's work so far. And so now, to keep us on schedule, and we are pretty much right on schedule with our agenda, we're going to move over to the panelists, who will each be speaking a little bit about their own area of expertise, learnings, and just in a lot of ways conversation starters to get this broader group communicating and thinking. So reminder that to keep to that 3 to 5, because everyone, has Zoom burnout. But we'll be starting with Cal, if you don't mind kicking us off and sharing from the CFDA side.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to see a few faces I recognize and a few names in the chat that I also recognize as well. So I'm really glad to be here. So my name is Cal McNeil. I am working on supply chain and manufacturing for the Council of Fashion Designers of America. We're a trade association that supports American fashion brands, but I'm actually one of the teams that has a bit of a unique framework for our programs, where we actually support manufacturers as well, mainly in New York City through our partnership with the New York City Economic Development Corporation, through our Fashion Manufacturing Initiative. First of all, I'm going to get dry mouth, I guarantee it. So I'm going to take a glass of water every once in a while. But what I work on now is really interesting around manufacturing, supporting their businesses through every stage of really their careers, just like we do with our designers. It's been obviously a few interesting months through COVID, through the racial inequality that a lot of people have woken up to, including the industry as well. So it's been really a few months of a lot of change, a lot of great change, to build up the industry a lot more and really support the people that need to be supported. So we have our manufacturing initiative that really has a few different opportunities that I just want to outline super quick around investing into technology versus machinery, and also workforce development and training associated with new technology, capital improvements to spaces, and moving costs as well. And then we were actually in the process of expanding that initiative as well to introduce our local production fund to promote and really try to get designers to onshore into New York City to increase production for factories as well, and really bringing more business for their factories and their workers consistently. You know, we've seen obviously over the last 40 years or so, a lot of manufacturing moving overseas. So we were trying to incentivize them to come back through relationship building as well. We had started our process into expanding our workforce development programming, and you know, have shifted that now, which I can speak about briefly. But there's a lot of really great work that we were trying to accomplish pre-COVID around training, upskilling, and really bringing the worker back to the forefront of our programs within our manufacturing initiative. I wanted to share just a few insights and different things that we'll be working on now that COVID has uplifted the industry by quite a bit. You know, if there's anyone interested, please just email me and I'll drop my email in the chat here as well. Once COVID started, we switched over to PPE production as far as connecting different resources into the network that we have within sourcing, donating, buying, you know, procuring different projects around PPE from our partners all over the country, whether it's the team in Isaac in Detroit, over to the mayor's team in LA, and then of course a lot of the factories in New York as well, and working with the governor and the city to try and help connect those resources and our designers, of course, through that. So if there's anything that you're kind of looking for within that PPE production, which has been really a revenue generator for some of these factories who had to be closed for so many months now, definitely reach out to me within that. But I think it's definitely an important piece of the workforce training that could be another opportunity for revenue and training associated with the workforce for fashion manufacturing. We've been able to really use the last few months of having some of the factories closed to make sure that we can share the right content and share the right resources to be able to now reopen safely, or, you know, apply for the right grants and things like that. So if there's anything, you know, from the factory side or from what you're hearing within the workforce that, you know, needs support within COVID relief, we've really been trying to make that one of our top focus alongside our diversity, inclusivity, and equity programs that we're now ramping up even more. So if there's anything, you know, related to that, please let me know. But I think that one thing that I've heard the most around, you know, the issues related to the industry as it relates to workforce is really, you know, not only how they've been negatively impacted within the cash flow of the industry, which really in the end hurt the workers within the factories, I feel the most, from retailers not being able to pay their designers not being able to pay their factories, and then factories not being able to pay to their workers. And, you know, luckily there are some loans and grants out there, but not everyone can, you know, qualify, not everyone received it. So that's been a big piece around the COVID pandemic that we're trying to address now, and understand how we can fix some of those issues within that cash flow, and really the crazy connectedness between each part of the supply chain as well. So definitely look out for more and then that. But also just the safety of reopening as well has been a big focus for us now, as now it's legally, you know, the factories are legally allowed to reopen now, but there's a lot of things that we've heard that, you know, the factories have quite a bit of issue with, and the workers as well, that we'd love to start addressing more, that maybe wasn't a traditional thing that we would address within our programming. Like, how do we, you know, build in childcare, or how do we build in the transportation resources or health and safety resources for the factories and their workers, to make sure that they can get to work safely, they can be in a very safe space when they're in their facilities. So we'll be rolling out some programming around that as well in the near future. But if there's any, you know, any needs that you hear from the workers, from the factories, from the industry overall, that you feel like, you know, we could potentially help support either financially or in-kind products or services, which is the route we've been taking recently around ride credits and free cleaning supplies, and looking into the free testing and different pieces like that, please definitely reach out to me. But it's definitely been a crazy few months, as I'm sure you've all noticed. But our focus now is getting the factories reopened, getting the workers back to work, but in a very safe way, and also a more sustainable way to have longer careers, within their paths, and also really revisit the opportunity to bring in more clients into the factories as well, to revitalize, the factories back to full capacity as much as possible, and then shift back to our kind of traditional route of investing into technology, doing our upskilling and training, and some of those other ancillary pieces that were more of the pre-COVID life that we, all lived a few months ago. So please let me know if you have any questions and any ideas for future programming.
Thank you, Cal. Really appreciate that update. And we will now pass over to Joanna Reynolds from the Pratt Center and Maiden NYC to speak a little bit about their work, and also I believe about an event this afternoon or evening as well. So Joanna, over to you.
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm Joanna Reynolds. I am the manager of programs and partnerships for Maiden NYC. Maiden NYC is an initiative of an organization called the Pratt Center for Community Development, which is an organization, nonprofit organization that is part of Pratt Institute, that is working towards a more sustainable and equitable future for New York City. I have an urban planning background. We're all urban planners. Maiden NYC is our main economic development program. And we're a local branding initiative that supports New York City's manufacturers and makers. So we have a website, online directory that is a searchable directory of over 1,300 and growing New York City manufacturers and makers in every industry that you can imagine. The fashion industry is our largest cohort of businesses and the largest subsection of our membership. We have our members that are able to use our logo. Our membership for local manufacturing businesses is free, and all of the resources that we provide are also free to all of our companies. In addition to placement on our directory and sort of part of just being a part of the Maiden NYC community and local brand, and using our logo on packaging and products, and just being able to use the network to identify themselves as a local brand, we also run the Maiden NYC Learning Lab, which is a grouping of over now 40 free workshops and creative services that we offer annually to Maiden NYC companies. All of our classes are taught by Pratt Institute faculty, staff, and students. So we are able to capitalize on our relationship with Pratt Institute to offer really excellent expertise around marketing and branding and business development. Tessa is actually one of our instructors. She teaches a class around digital marketing strategy, or a series of classes that have been really essential to helping New York City businesses market and promote themselves and stay relevant and move forward with their companies. During COVID, we've been sort of in this, as I think we all have been, in urgent crisis mode for the last couple of months, trying to make sure that we are connecting our companies with all of the resources that they've needed. So Maiden NYC, we see ourselves really as an aggregator of information and a connector to our network of other organizations that are supporting businesses in ways that are outside of marketing and branding. We have also been running a couple of town halls to provide information to companies. We've been running our weekly office hours, just trying to make sure that our companies are getting what they need as much as possible and are still feeling connected and part of the community in this very difficult time. We, of course, have had many companies who have pivoted to make PPE and all, emergency supplies in a number of different areas, and have been supporting to try to connect them to opportunities for, selling, but also just promoting them and making sure people know that they're out there. When the Black Lives Matter protests started, we also were coordinating with some of our companies, free mask donations, hand sanitizer donations, food donations, face shield donations to Black-led nonprofit organizations and groups who have been leading protests and being really at the center of a lot of the organizing. That was really important to us, that we were able to link our work to this sort of racial justice, awakening that our country is having at the moment. And, as Tessa mentioned, we have an event this evening, or this afternoon rather. We are co-hosting our weekly office hours with BACnet, Business Outreach Center Network, and the Working World, to have a 1 hour group networking dialogue around the new program, city focus program that gives owners the opportunity to sell their businesses to their employees to create worker-owned cooperatives. A lot of companies, this could be a solution for a lot of companies in a tight spot that want to use this as a conversion in a way to transition in that way. So it's from this afternoon our full office hours is from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. But the special on worker-owned cooperatives is from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. for the last hour. We open our office hours to all New York City manufacturers and makers. If you're not a Maine NYC member already, we'll get you to be a member. And we have the first hour, these are 15-minute slots where we do one-on-one consultation with companies, and the last hour is open. But we're really here for New York City manufacturers and makers. We're here to support them, tell their stories. We've been doing a lot of, just highlighting our companies and trying to get their stories out there. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Joanna. That's so great to hear. And it is always really exciting to see the continued momentum in the city around cooperative ownership. So I'm really glad that that event coincided with our roundtable today. So actually we'll continue on the cooperative conversation a bit. We're handing over next to Andrea, who's a researcher whose work has focused a lot around this idea of cooperative ownership. And so go ahead, Andrea.
Hi, everyone. It's still kind of early. It's early for Zoom. My name is Andrea. Yeah, I consider myself now a social designer. It's sort of a newer role for me. My background is in industrial design. And for about 13 or 14 years, I was working as an industrial designer and then in product development, a lot of home lifestyle brands, some of the smaller studios and a lot of the bigger corporations. And then I really got into artisan communities and working overseas with them and exporting and all that good stuff. So I consider myself now a social designer, a design researcher, as Tessa mentioned, and a visual communicator. And really it's working towards equity and economic justice is what I really want to focus on. So I'm with the right people right now. I recently graduated from SBA and I worked with Custom Collaborative. I worked with Grace and Tessa and Ngozi, which I was so flattered that they took me in, and we did a lot of really good work. I have my master's in design for social innovation, and I just recently graduated during the pandemic. so that was a little crazy. But I think it made me say, okay, well, there's a revolution going on. So I'm in the right place, and I have to do what I have to do. So it was really affirming. The program itself, just quickly to back up, it uses a lot of what you're talking about, the one-on-one. So it uses the design process to tackle social issues and positions designers or creatives to kind of lead that process. One of the main things that we talk about a lot is that we design with and not for community, and that's really number one. I use frameworks like design thinking, human-centered design, all these words that we hear. I would say it's more equity-centered community design. I take that from Creative Reaction Lab. Antoinette's amazing. Design justice frameworks, design research, a lot of what we call probes and prototyping, which is really just a fancy way of saying testing things out quickly and responsibly. And yeah, and so my personal practice, I think I've moved away from saying I'm the designer and things center me to I'm a facilitator and allowing things to, I'm not being an expert and just allowing hopefully facilitating conversations and facilitating different ideas to make, as a collective, people kind of come together, and we as a collective will solve the issues, right? So it's very much in line what you presented as the one by one. Totally happy to hear about this, and it's right on. I think for my thesis, I worked with my partner Vanessa, and I'm not going to go through the whole thesis, but I think initially I started thinking of like exploring ways on how to support more inclusive pathways, specifically, for immigrant women into these creative economies, and then slowly fell into more of the fashion production and fashion in general. And I think what I learned is that it's really complex. It's obviously really systemic as we sit here and all of our minds are kind of going, and we all have our own expertise, but it's a systemic problem. But my main takeaway really is that it's about who the workforce is. So I want to make sure to center the workforce and the people that are the workforce when we talk about garment workers. And I think in New York City, it is no doubt immigrant women, right? It's like 95%. And so I think that led me to kind of think about what other industries the immigrant community was coming into, which is definitely the sector, the service sector, which is booming. And again, as we know, although people are finally being considered essential workers, I think that it doesn't provide benefits, and it's really problematic, right? That's the sector. So, and I've been in the service sector myself, and for 10, 15 years, so I understand it. So then I kind of moved on to thinking, well, okay, well, is the industry actually healthy? And I think that's kind of where I sort of am still sitting with, like, is the industry healthy enough to basically have immigrant women have good jobs, good livelihoods, good fair livelihoods, right? And I think that that's the work that we need to do. In the end, I think it's kind of not, right? A lot of the immigrant women that I speak of that hold down the garment industry are really, a lot of them that we know are non-documented, right? Which leaves them in very vulnerable situations. And I think that if you have an industry that's reliant on something like that and reliant on exploiting people, that's really problematic. So we really have to think through what we want to create. But I don't want to be a big Debbie Downer on this. I do want to say that I do find that there's opportunities, especially right now. Like I said, there's a revolution happening. And so that gives me a really good sense of like what can happen, what can we design. And what I really believe in is the solidarity economy frameworks. And that goes with co-ops. And so one of my many prototypes ended up being sort of like, what I would say is just very simply put, like a bottom-up approach to data gathering, which really just means kind of it centers workers. And Grace was so gracious to do this with me within the 7 new co-op members. And we basically had like a data collection mechanism, because I think it's important that we hear from workers themselves as opposed to the other way, where we're sitting here as experts, we don't really need to have that many conversations. We really kind of have to listen, and people know what they need, and then collectively we can bring together and sort of uplift their voices. And so this mechanism was basically just that, participatory style workshops where you're hearing from people directly. And I think that's where I'll leave you, because there's probably a whole lot more, but I think that to me, what I'm going to be fighting for is to always have the people most marginalized and also the people most affected. Right now, the people most affected from the fashion industry are those people. And I think that they should be full right here in center, front and center, I'm sorry. And that's all.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you. Yeah, and to echo that, it is really very much the goal of the coalition and obviously of this project as well, to create the spaces for these conversations to happen that are more multifaceted or inclusive of voices that might have been locked out in the past. So I'm going to pass along now to Pauline Locke from InStyle to speak a little bit from the factory and manufacturing side. Hi, Pauline.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me on the panel. It's great to see faces, whether it's virtual or not. You know, I'm sure everyone's aware the industry was hit really, really hard. Initially, when the pandemic hit New York, and I saw that, you know, Governor Cuomo was asking for manufacturers or anyone that, you know, was able to start making PPE, I reached out through more channels than I can remember, and it was just an uphill battle. I mean, I realized that we had the resources, but we couldn't connect it to the right people to even start that process. So I guess after about 8 weeks later, and through multiple emails, phone calls, whatnot, I finally got through, and we became a part of a coalition that, you know, through the Fashion Girls of Humanity, we were also able to donate gowns that we've made, and we're still making the PPE today. But, you know, it's unfortunate. I realized that, you know, this pandemic was unforeseen, naturally, and, you know, things were not in place, you know, to connect people, to connect the right people. Like if there were people that were manufacturers, we need to be connected to the fabric resources that were possibly still open, the thread people that were possibly still open. And also, you know, for us, it was a huge transition bringing staff back, you know, and I hope that, you know, Cal mentioned that, you know, they're going to help more businesses, but for us, it was a learn as you go. So basically there was no protocols in place about, like, you know, how we should social distance within the office, because things were still kind of evolving a few months ago, you know. So for us, like, you know, Cal, if you need help, I'm definitely here, because we went through weeks of like trying to find plexiglass, you know, hand sanitizers, you know, all of these resources, you know, just to reopen, because we were then certified as an essential because we were making the PPE. As far as the workforce is concerned, I'm thrilled to hear about all these collaboratives that will help generate more workforce, because that's been an ongoing problem way before this pandemic even hit. So, you know, like I speak at seminars, I speak at schools, and I'm trying to initiate sewing is sexy, but it hasn't taken on, and I don't know why, but I'm gonna keep trying. So, you know, it's a great skill to have, you know, to be part of a community that now can finally say we are actually saving lives and not just making people look better. So, you know, it's been challenging, and I do hope, like, you know, this has taught us a great lesson that, like, more resources need to be put in place now, especially if more businesses are opening. What protocols we need to follow in order to keep all of our employees safe, because, you know, they're giving us general guidelines, but there isn't anything specific to a workforce such as ours. You know, like we work in close proximity. It took a lot of time and effort with very limited reasons to, you know, move our machinery around so that our employees were not, you know, that were social distancing, rewise. You know, all of these were not taken into account. Naturally, of course, no one thought this was going to ever happen. But, you know, these are some resources that I think we need to start implementing, you know, just going forward. You know, we never expected a lot of things to happen this year, but they have. And we kind of have to like band together and pull our resources together and prevent something like this from happening, or be prepared for something that may happen in the future.
Thank you.
That's all I've got.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. First of all, for highlighting that sewing is sexy. I think that's very important for everyone to remember. And also for highlighting the communication piece, because that is absolutely something that I think has been a consistent response that we've heard across stakeholders in kind of all areas of the industry. How do we get the real, you know, tactile, hands-on knowledge to make these things happen? So that's exactly why we're all here, and super exciting. All right, so now I'm going to hand it along to Libby from William Mills to speak a little bit about their work as well. Libby, go ahead.
Hi guys. Wow, what a time to be alive. What a time to be in fashion. So we at William Mills, I've been running production for William Mills for about 7 years for swim and clothing. And within the past 3 months, we've been basically exclusively producing PPE. I also run a nonprofit called Cooperative Trade, where I train sewers on industrial machines. It's a 120-hour paid course, and then I place them at positions at factories. And for me, training is certainly taking a bit of a backseat right now. You know, there's so much work to be done on the grounds at Malia Mills, and I think that's probably the same for all factories, all brands who had to let go a significant portion of their workforce / deal with whatever's coming down the pike. Nobody knows. So what we were able to do, and Pauline, I think you said it really well, the communication aspect of the whole PPE production was a wild ride. I mean, I was in contact with the New York City Economic Development Corporation prior to COVID, and so I was able to get in touch with them relatively quickly, but it was quite difficult to get everything set up. We were able to, Course of Trade managed 5 factories with several subsidiary factories in South Brooklyn. We produced over 500,000 isolation gowns over the past 3 months. It was truly crazy to get this crash course. And I think what is so critical now is there's so much information that we've all learned over the past couple months. And how do we disseminate that information? How do we make sure that if, God forbid, this happens again, we're all prepared? And I think also what was so important about what we just went through was it really highlighted some major issues in the industry. You know, when we were trying to hire for people to come on board at Malia Mills to sew, it was hard. You know, the workforce that we were tapping into were in the exact age demographic that was most impacted by COVID. What do we do? You know, how we're putting people at risk if they come to work. And it really is such, we basically got a look into what the workforce will be like in 10 years. And I think now is the time for us to be training, and now is the time for us to be really figuring out what we want the New York City manufacturing landscape to look like. And how do we shake the dust off of what people view as New York City manufacturing? It's not this dusty, dark place anymore. You know, these are beautiful, light factories, and they're good jobs. You know, they're good jobs, and people can really thrive. And there's something immensely satisfying, as I'm sure all of us know, about creating something with your hands. So we have to, sewing is sexy, and we have to be able to really reshape them, what people view as manufacturing in New York. And I have quite a few things that I'm working on now, one being an app that I think would help a ton with scheduling, with getting factories in contact with workers, ideally helping to alleviate sort of the crazy ebb and flow of work that impacts every factory and every worker. You know, you have these crazy highs and these wild lows, and you're letting people go and you're hiring frantically. You know, really figuring out a way that we can help that really painful point in the industry. But it's amazing to be here with everyone, and I'm so inspired by all of you, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Libby, and thank you also for noting that kind of preview of coming attractions that this situation has really thrown the industry into. It's so true. It's something that, you know, everyone sort of knows has been brewing. What happens when this the current workforce retires out, and that's really what we've been seeing in this most immediate sense. And also really exciting to think about technology solutions that could provide answers for these challenges. Amazing. Okay, so now we're going to hand over to Deandra, who's been mentioned a few times. So she will be the instructor, the industry expert for the 1x1 apprenticeship. So she's going to speak a little bit about her own work as well as the work on the 1x1.
Hi, everybody. I am glad to be here. I am a team member of Mara Hoffman, and I operated as the manager of the technical design and pattern making team. My history is probably very straightforward as many. I have about 17 years in fashion, in New York fashion, in production and technical design, in everything from ready to wear, swim and dresses. And of course, my son comes in now. Hold on, please.
he can share some comments on his thoughts, you know, if he'd like to jump on screen.
Anyways, all this
Deandra
time.
does it all. You do it all, Deandra. And this is the reality of working in these times at the moment.
So true, so true. And such respect to all of the moms. Our custom collaborative grads are about 94% moms, so this has been a consistent experience. Thank you, Deandra. Sorry.
Yeah, they're behaving all this time and now. So my role, so yes, I have about 17 years in fashion in all product categories. And so when they brought this idea to the forefront, of course, I feel like I have tons to share, and definitely in a position in life where I feel like, you know, you get to a certain age and you got to share it. So this felt like a great, like a great moment, a great marriage. And so the idea, what I begin to think about, what I begin to look at is all of the spaces that become important when hiring for these roles, all of the things, all of the intangibles, like, yes, you want them to have gone to school. Yes, you want them to, you know, have a basic understanding of this and that, but there are that transfer of knowledge, as mentioned before, so much of what goes into technical design, pattern making, et cetera, it's a craft. It is a craft, and as we speak about, you know, some of the artisans, the true artisans, they are retiring and aging out, and that information is passed person to person. That special touch that it takes to create these like fully embellished pieces, you're not going to get that in school. School is a great start, but so much of that is hands-on and on the job. And so I really do truly believe, first of all, anyone is teachable, but secondly, that while school is the start, what you're really going to get through mastery is one-on-one. It is to be with those senior artisans and those masters, those seafoods. Like, you have to really sit at the feet and learn that. And so I do believe this is an awesome opportunity for individuals who maybe haven't gone to school, but to still, they have an acumen for this. So they will get it. They will get it despite language barrier. Like, I don't foresee there being an issue with them understanding the needs of the fashion industry, taking what they already have that they may have learned naturally or through the program, and being able to plug that into the polish or the formality of the actual industry. And so that is what we're looking to do. I'm definitely looking at ways. I mean, it's a little tricky now because of our amazing moment in time, but looking at ways to take these skills that they have and show them, to help them not be so afraid, because it can be daunting, this idea of walking into Mara Hoffman or walking into these, you know, established businesses and brands, but realizing that what you have is a solution for these brands, and to plug in confidently and offer it, and also be a teacher, be a servant leader, even in that capacity. So that's what I'm here to do, and it's great to meet you all.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Deandra. We are so lucky to have you in this, you know, pilot experience. It's been such a joy working together since the beginning of the year. And all right, so now we are on to our final speaker, which will be Grace, who is a graduate of Custom Collaborative's Training Institute and also one of the founding members of Fashion Network's production, the cooperative that Custom Collaborative is incubating. I noticed a few questions coming through in the chat, so I think after Grace is finished speaking, we might just do a couple quick questions to the panelists at large. So if you'd like to add any thoughts that have been coming to mind in the chat while Grace is speaking, we can get to those right after her talk. So Grace, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks so much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Grace Oligny. I'm a graduate of the Custom Collaborative Training Institute, Cohort 6, that graduated in June 2019. And along with other 6 fellow graduates, we have been selected by Custom Collaborative to be founding members of a women-owned workers cooperative in Harlem based on specific skill sets and the strengths we demonstrated in the Training Institute. We have all different backgrounds, and we're a diverse group with members from Mexico, Brazil, Nigeria, India, Israel, Japan, and the US. And our goal in starting this business is to empower other women to achieve viable livelihoods in the fashion industry. And we've spent the past year working with the Legal Aid Society and the law firm Debevoise and Plimpton on our incorporation and setting up our governance structure. And we've officially formed as of June 11th. So yeah, so exciting. Thank you so much. And so we've also been very fortunate to be working with Andrea and the Democracy at Work Institute in the development of our worker cooperative. And we chose to incorporate as a worker cooperative because we wanted to create a business that matches our values, a business based on democracy, equality, equity, and solidarity. For those that don't know, worker co-op businesses are owned and operated by their members, the people that work in them, and they operate for the benefit of the members and the community as a source of economic stability. So there's an actual living wage, profit share, worker protections, along with personal and professional growth. And so we're finalizing our business plan, and during the pandemic, our co-op has been fulfilling orders of masks and other personal protective equipment. Our manufacturing co-op will provide services in pattern making, sampling, and cut and sew. And soon we'll be accepting orders of 1 to 200 pieces and opening up membership to all qualified fashion workers across our region. So it's a very exciting time for us, so stay tuned. Thank you.
Wonderful. Grace, thank you so much. Congratulations. It's been so exciting to watch this come to launch, and really, really glad that you could join and share that experience. So, all right, so that brings us to the end of our kind of quick panel. And I think Celine DiCarlo, you saw there were some, do we still have Celine? Well, we had some questions coming in through the chat. So I think that there was one from someone at Nest about, sorry, I'm just scrolling through the chat, about the ideas of homework and decentralized work and how that fits into the New York manufacturing landscape. So would anyone like to, maybe from the panelists, jump in and speak on that topic? I'm letting, okay. Is there anyone that would maybe like to start with it? I mean, Grace, you could, I'm not to put you on the spot again, but you have been, you know, the cooperative members have been doing this homework for the past several months, or Ngozi, if you want to speak to any of that process as well. This has been something that, that has been ongoing.
And I would also, and apologies for all of the technological mishaps. If you've seen me flailing around during this, it's because the Wi-Fi crashed and such is life. But Ngozi, just to add to that question also is, because I think it's the work that you've been doing so well for so many years with Custom Collaborative, of how do we start to prepare for home sewers? And maybe this is something Libby can jump in as well, because it's definitely the direction that the industry is going in, and maybe Cal, but how do we start to set that up for manufacturers to really allow that home workers economy to grow, because it will be a necessity.
Yeah,
I called on all three of you.
Yeah, you did. And so I'm just gonna jump in, and then Cal and Grace can come along. So I think that there's two different things. And so I'm just going to include a response to one of the questions I saw. So the question asked about how we will incorporate the digital aspect, right? And so then there's the digital aspect here, and then there's the home sewing here, right? Because home sewing has been a tradition in the industry, you know, over the past century. So the question is, how are we responsive to both? And I think definitely for the digital, for what's to come, whether it's 5 years or more, when we're all looking at machines making clothing and more of the of course right now, like a lot of the pattern making and all that is digital. We want to train people for the future as well as accommodate for the present, right? And so training for the future means an investment, a serious investment in the workforce, in workspaces, in equipment, in staff. And so I'll say to you that Custom Collaborative, what we've done it on a shoestring budget with goodwill. But if we are going to really make New York a fashion manufacturing capital, there has to be an investment from all sides, and that's industry, that's state and local government, that's federal government, right? Because it can't be, you know, that 13 people, which is the size of Custom Collaborative staff, and Libby's group, however many are at Course of Trade, that we're going to do it all ourselves. And so we're fortunate to have CFDA. I see Lisa Futterman from Workforce Development Institute behind us, and other partners. But we really need to make a serious investment in the same way that we need to invest in the equity and inclusion work that we're talking about, right? So it's great we're talking about this now. Now the world has realized, oh, okay, so we need to be able to produce PPE. Well, in order to do that, there has to be an investment. In order to make sure that women and others are not exploited, we have to invest in equity and inclusion. So I think that there's that. And then on the other side with the home sewing as well, we need to make sure that the laws are updated and aligned with what we need, and so that they're not merely focused on like not exploiting people, but like also allowing people to operate in the way that they want to.
Thanks, Ngozi. Always can count on you to bring the lawyer voice in on the legal front as well. Were there any other panelists who wanted to jump in on those two questions, or if anyone wanted to add any kind of final comments or questions?
I think Cal is.
Oh, Cal, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say something that I completely agree with Ngozi on everything she said. I feel like a lot of flexibility was given to the industry and to the world really around, especially around the PPE production. FDA approvals went out the window for some things, you know, and I feel like the challenge is going to be when that flexibility goes away. And I think you bring up a great point, Ngozi, around the laws associated with that and home sewing, because it's bound to happen. It's going to go back to, you know, what those regulations were at one point before COVID. And I think it's really a time to address it now. I wonder if we have a great relationship with the American Apparel and Footwear Association, who are more on the lobbying for the industry as the governmental side. We're a bit more like, you know, working on the designer side, but they're definitely more within Washington and helping within legislation. So perhaps they'd be a good group to engage with on something like that, to figure out a way to maybe change some of those laws, or, you know, keep that flexibility going within some of the practices that people have been able to accomplish over the last few months within specifically PPE and home production as well.
And if I can jump in just 1 second. Also, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Natalie Channon at Alabama Channon, but she has a really interesting model for a home sewing that I think maybe could be something that is applied in New York. But effectively what she does is she sells the kits for whatever they're making at home to her employees that are working at home, so that they are then selling it back to her for, which kind of as a temporary means circumvents the legal issues, but also it breeds a level of accountability. You know, it's all of the things that you would want, you know, really responsible people taking it home and producing. And I think what it also does is shines a light on the importance of home sewing. You know, their ability to get work done in a really efficient way, in a way that's, you know, much more schedule sensitive for a lot of the women primarily who are working on these programs. It's an interesting model that I think maybe could be implemented in New York.
Thank you. Joanna, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I can just add something really quick. So when Made in NYC first started many years ago, our requirements for membership required that products were being made in a commercial, industrial, or mixed use space. So we were actually for many years disqualifying people who would apply who were making at home. And about a year and a half ago, we realized that that was sort of by accidentally discriminatory, because we had predominantly women of color applying to be Meet NYC members who are making at home in the fashion industry, apparel, jewelry, beauty, and home goods. And it was something we had to change about our application process, because I think this is increasingly, especially in New York City, I mean, now we live in this whole different world with this remote work being a priority and safer. And then also real estate in New York City is a true challenge for a lot of people and entrepreneurs who want to start a company, but like can't go get their own space, but want to start making things and have a business. So just wanted to chime in that like we have completely shifted our thinking around that, because we've had to be, you know, equitably supporting the entrepreneurs and companies that we want to. So I think this is going to be a really important piece of how we move forward to make home sewing and homemaking you know, safe and a priority.
Yeah. Thanks, Joanna. I just, before we close it off, because I know it's 10:45, I just wanted to call attention to Sarah Timberlake's comment with regards to the logistics that is needed within this. And it's a really important one to end off on, because we have to look at the extensions that enable and allow all of these collaborations and these collectives and this home worker paradigm to exist. It's thinking about the logistics, the transportation, the health, the safety aspects of all these things. So I think it's definitely a great note to end on in terms of calling all these various industries that need to step in order to help facilitate this. I wanted to thank Tessa so much for being an MC for all of this, for everyone's participation, and to end us off, I will hand it over to Mara Hoffman.
Hi. First and foremost, really just thank you to all of these amazing panelists that I'm continually so inspired by and in awe of, and just I have so much to learn from. And thank you so much to all the attendees who are showing up today, and how important it is to keep promoting this work. And it's, for me, incredibly hopeful to see this true level of collaboration. And it was there before for sure, but seeing it at this level and knowing it's really the route to the new world. And I feel that very deeply here with all of these people and all of the attendees that I can't see. But this is the path, and I'm so excited to be in the place where we can there's a lot of beginnings right now. I think about that with our own company, and what a humbling time it is to sort of feel that after all of these years and thinking that you know so many parts of this industry and business, that to sort of start over in so many parts. And I feel very humbled by that, and sometimes overwhelmed by it, but ultimately so incredibly inspired by being a student again, and by, it feels like starting something new. And all of you are so deeply a part of that. So just a huge thank you. And I'm so excited to see where this goes. And I feel so grateful that we can be any part of this. That's it. Thank you so much, everyone.
Tess, I think we'll have a follow-up to everyone who RSVP'd, is that right?
Yes, so thank you, Mara, so much for that, and everyone, all the panelists and attendees, and all of the amazing questions and comments in the chat. As Mara said, this is really a beginning, more so. This conversation is meant as a kickoff to a conversation, or many conversations that will come. So we will be following up everyone who has registered, or if you know of anyone else who maybe should be involved in this conversation, please reach out to us and let us know. But we will be following up with a survey. We shared sort of a pre-survey, and we'll follow up on that as well, so we can gather more comments, more feedback, more data from the group. And then also Celine DiCarlo will be following up on the coalition. So the workforce coalition that she introduced is this ongoing initiative, and really the site for this collaboration to take place. So you'll be hearing more from us. Thank you everyone so much for joining on a Thursday morning. And we really look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye everyone.
Bye everyone.
Bye everybody, thanks.